Good morning. Good morning. This is the regularly scheduled State Board of Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board meeting. My name is Roxana Gamusio. I am the Executive Director with the board. I want to welcome all of our members for being here and members from the public, and I will turn the meeting over to our chair in just a minute. As first order of business, I am going to conduct roll call vote. As I read your name, if you could please turn on your mic and then state that you are here and then back off, we'll be able to proceed. Ms. Susan Arnold?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Perry Baldwin?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Bernetta Carlton? Present. Thank you. Ms. Anita Charlton? Ms. Charlton is not here with us today. Ms. Monica Lemons?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. David McElreath?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Marquise Martin is also not here with us today. Mr. Jeffrey Moran?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Lane Petty?
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley?
Present just in time.
Thank you. Perfect. Ms. Lori Turner?
Present.
Thank you. And Tamika Turner?
Present.
Members, we do have quorum, so we will begin as first order of business. Anyone participating through WebEx or as members of the public that are here today have an opportunity at the end of the meeting during new business to ask any questions they might have, to comment on what's on the agenda. I will make sure to have time at that point to go over those. The next order of business is we are changing all of the items on our website, or have changed all of our items. Minor things are still pending to be ADA compliant. And as part of that, everything that is posted to the public and to assist the public goes through a reader process. And so anytime you speak, whether you have a question or you're making a motion, then I do need you to state your name on the record before we proceed so that the reader properly spells out who is speaking. And I will try, if I stop you, to remind you, or Joe does. That's the reason for it. I think once we get used to it, it'll be a little bit easier. So Ms. Russell, I'll turn it over to you for a minute.
For the record, this is Becky Russell, and I'd like to welcome all the schools that are present with us today. If you would, if you have a school or are a student of school, please stand and someone tell us where you're from. Welcome to the CAT Murfreesboro. I'm sorry. CDRS Academy, welcome. Welcome, Edge. All right, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Russell. Again, this is Roxana Gamusio. The first order of business to take care of on our agenda is adopting the agenda as presented. If you see no changes to the agenda, I would need a motion and a second to adopt.
David McElreath makes a motion that's accepted.
Lane Petty, second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second on the record to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. We don't have any members participating virtually. The next item would be the minutes. These are the February 2026 meeting minutes. They were sent via email to you ahead of time. If you have any changes that you've noticed, please let me know so they can be amended. Otherwise, I would need a motion and a second to accept the February minutes as presented.
Lori
David
Turner.
McElreath makes a motion to accept.
Lori Turner, second.
Thank you, Ms. Turner and Mr. McElreath. We have a motion and a second to accept. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Ms. Russell, that takes care of our two orders of business. We are on to the school applications, and I will turn it over to you, ma'am. The first application on your iPads on page 3 is Performance Beauty Academy. This is a new barber school. Ms. Faye Waldrum is certain participating virtually to answer any questions regarding this new school. This school obtained their cosmetology license in October of 2024. You have before you the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, catalog, and contingency plan. They were all submitted timely for this particular school type. Ms. Waldrum, are you on the call?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Waldron, this is Becky Russell. Welcome. Would you like to tell us a bit about your school?
Yes, ma'am. We've been open about a year and a half, and we have our cosmetology program, aesthetics, and manicuring program. And we have decided to add the barbering program if it is approved by you all.
Okay, Ms. Waldron, Becky Russell again. I'm going to ask you a few questions about some notes that I've made. You intend to offer virtual instruction, is that correct?
We have it approved for our hybrid learning. We do not have any students enrolled in that program at this point. The only thing that we would be doing with that would be the theory hours, not anything with practical.
And Ms. Waldron, this is Roxana Gamusi. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but each time you answer, I need you to state your name on the record. As
Okay.
I explained to the board members, that applies to those participating virtually as well. So it's going to be harder because I hate to interrupt you, at least with the members I can see you. But yes, unfortunately, each time that you answer, we will need your name on the record. Thank you, ma'am.
Becky Russell again. The systems requirements that you have listed, you have it listed, if I'm not mistaken, it says that the students need to follow the protocols for, and it gives a couple of systems that you plan to use. If you are going to use those, the school needs to let the students know what those system requirements are and don't expect that they will know how to find that out. So if you'll just make a note for yourself that you'll need to say that they need, and then whatever the systems require, if it's a computer or a tablet, whatever the devices are, or if they need any special software, you need to let them know what those are. I see that you have a method for timekeeping. Do you have a backup method for that?
This is Faye Waldron. Yes, we do we do a photo as well as our clock in and clock out system. We use Cosmo Classroom for that program. And our backup is our paper sign in, sign out sheet.
Do you have the paper, sorry, Becky Russell, do you have the paper copy listed? It looks like it's on your page 27. It talks about the clock-in system. I'm not saying the paper version.
Okay, I do see where you see that at the bottom. We use our paper system if we have any type of internet outage or anything like that. Is that something that we need to do constantly? Keep that. I mean, we do an Excel spreadsheet as well, but I will list that in on our catalog that we do have those back.
This is Becky Russell. Yes, it has to be listed for both. It has to list both of the timekeeping methods.
Okay, this is Faye Waldron. I will add that to the catalog.
This is Becky Russell. The contingency plan, I just had a question about it. It says that the school may elect to provide the students a refund, and I'm not sure under what circumstances a refund would be issued. I just think that that might need some clarification, or maybe under what circumstances it wouldn't be issued. That's part of your contingency plan.
This is Faye Waldron. I see that on page 38 under our policy contingency teach out plan on A. And I will remove may elect and just have to provide.
This is Becky Russell. In your blueprint, it shows that you have 15 stations. Our inspector will make sure that that is accurate. You, however, list that your class size will be 20 to 1, a 20 to 1 ratio. Just a reminder that when students are working on the clinic floor, it is also a requirement that each student have their own station. So I don't know. The requirement is 15 stations, or I suppose one per student when they're working on the clinic floor. Just wanted to make a clarification there that your class sizes don't exceed the number of stations that you have provided for them when they're working. You also I'm not sure which page, I think it's our page 6. You have it listed that the students must have a diploma, GED, or have a 10th grade education. The educational requirement is no longer required. You as a school owner may require that, but just a note for you saying that that is not a requirement for licensure any longer.
This is Kay Walden. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
If I could interrupt, this is Roxanna Gamusio. Ms. Waldron, regarding the statement on the ratio and the number of stations that Ms. Russell pointed to, in the Barber program, the ratio is 15 to 1, not 20 to 1. So that needs to be revised. I missed that. And then on your page 27 of your catalog, as we were going over Ms. Russell's questions, the last sentence on your column to the left says that the records will be maintained for 6 years. That's incorrect. They need to be maintained for 7. Just 2 items to point out. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry,
This is
Ms.
Kay
Russell.
Walden. We will make those changes.
This is Becky Russell. Board members, if you have any questions for Ms. Waldron, please ask them. I've got another note that I'm researching to, I think I have another question, but I need to look back at her paperwork. This is Becky Russell. Joe, could you look at page, it's hour 18. On the right-hand column, the performance of the Beauty Academy is authorized. Can you look at that and see if that is okay legally? And Roxanna, I'm sure that you will, I'm just not understanding the statement there, if that is okay or correct.
My interpretation of that statement is essentially an assertion that the school's been approved by the board. So my hope is that that is just drafting based off of the board future's approval of the board, not current advertising for the school.
Thank you for that clarification.
Members, were there any other questions?
Samika Turner. I have a question about the student hours because I've drawn a blank. What is the max for part-time hours? Is it 24 or 28?
This is Roxana Gamuso. Joe is looking it up. I'm not sure if it's still in the statute or has been eliminated. It would be either 20 or 25, but I don't know that they're still there. So Joe is going to take a look.
This is Amy Tanksley. My only comment is on your page 38. Under the undergraduate certificate in Master Barber, you have the program length listed as 12 months. But given this is a part-time only program, I believe it's much longer than that. I just wanted that to be consistent in your documents.
This is Faye Waldron. Yes, ma'am, we will correct that on the months for the program lead.
This is Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. So the differentiation between a full-time student and a part-time student is made in our rule. And the specific rule addressing that matter is Rule 0200-01-.01, and that is number 5D, and it reads as follows. Full-time barber school students shall be defined as students enrolled in school for at least 25 hours per week, and part-time barber school students shall be defined as students enrolled in school for at least 15 hours per week. So it's a minimum of 15 hours.
Tamika Turner. So there's not a max for part-time or full-time anymore.
Joe Wharton, the max is set for the full-time students. The minimum is that 7-year rule, where essentially you have 7 years to complete your necessary hours for licensure. Yes, thank you.
This is Amy Tanksley. Unless there's any other questions or concerns, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the changes we've recommended.
A second. Barry Baldwin, second.
Thank you, sir. This is Roxana Gamucio. The motion does have to be read on the record by roll call vote. So members, if you'll unmute yourself and say that you are in agreement. If you are not, please, when it comes to your turn, you can say no. But at this point, all of our motions will need to be a roll call vote. Ms. Susan Arnold?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Perry Baldwin? Ms. Bernetta Carlton? Ms. Monica Lemons?
Yes.
Mr. David McElreath?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Moran?
Yes.
Ms. Lane Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Lori Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, members. That takes care of our first school. Ms. Waldron, congratulations. And all those revisions that the members suggested, please have those sent to me so that we can review their requirements and then proceed with an inspection when you are ready.
This is Faye Waldron. Thank you so much to the board. We look
Thank you.
forward. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ms. Russell, the next school is Tri-Cities Academy. This is a change in location. And again, this is Roxana Gamucio. That application starts on our page 69. Ms. Elizabeth Moore is participating virtually, I believe, to answer any questions we have regarding the school. It is located in Johnson City, Tennessee. You have before you the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, catalog, and contingency plan, all received timely. I will turn it over to you, Ms. Russell.
Becky Russell. Ms. Moore, would you like to tell us a bit about your school?
Yes, Miss Russell. My name's Elizabeth Moore, and I'm the owner of Tri-Cities Academy of Aesthetics, again, located here in Johnson City. And I've been renting my suite, and October will be the 3rd year that we've been in business. And it was brought to my attention in February that my neighbors were moving out that had an adjoining suite, which allowed us to expand our program into a full cosmetology. I've had several, uh, I guess, community members reaching out for nails and hair apprenticeship program on this side of town. And we're one of the closest schools to the North Carolina state line. Of course, up here in the tip, we are very close to Virginia. So we're trying to work with some of the schools that are on the state lines to do hybrid situations to make it to where they can cross over and transfer into the state of Tennessee as well. So that's kind of how this growth became about. With that being said, I am a nail tech and an esthetician myself. So I've been wanting to offer nails for a while, but combining the two license for a full cosmetology program just seemed much more feasible for me as a business owner of my own. And so while we're expanding out, I've hired a few instructors to take that cos program for myself and everything. Going back to my enrollment agreement and everything, I had 5 days to put this application into the state after I was made aware that the suite would be available to me. So I did find a few things over the weekend that I actually wanted to add into my enrollment agreement if the board would allow me to go over those changes that I would like to make.
This is Amy Tanksley. I just have a clarification question. Are we approving a change of location, or are we also adding additional programs when we're reviewing this?
And I can respond. This is Roxana Gamusio. It's my understanding that Ms. Moore is moving from one place to the other because if the school is, it's going to be inspected one, and if they're adding another program, this would be an ideal time. They don't need a new license, and so they could expand and add manicuring or anything else because we will be doing an inspection.
Okay, again, Amy Tanksley, it is currently approved as an aesthetics program.
Ms. Moore, is this exclusively an aesthetic school?
Yes, this is Elizabeth Moore, and it is exclusively of aesthetics, and we offer lashes, of course, underneath that umbrella and instructors program. And just to clarify, we are moving locations, but we're doing more of an expansion. I will be in my suite that I have been in offering aesthetics. We are just getting the suite attached next to us to do that expansion with the square footage.
Okay, thank you.
And to clear, this is Roxana Gamusio. It would be a cosmetology school. Is that accurate? Am I responding correctly, Ms. Moore? But you don't have to offer cosmetology. You're wanting to offer the manicure curriculum.
This is Elizabeth Moore. Yes, we're fully going to offer cosmetology programs. So the inspection for a full cosmetology program. However, the cosmetology program will be apprenticeship only with traditional nails, traditional lashes, skin, and traditional for instructors program.
This is Becky Russell, and I'd like to get started with a few questions. It appears that your days and hours of operation do not match the number of weeks that your students should be in school in order to graduate. So you'll need to go back and revisit the weeks or months to graduation and match those to the hours of enrollment. Your contingency plan, it states in there that if the school were to close down, you've got several salon locations that the students could complete their clinical hours in or their salon hours in, and that is not an adequate way to run a school. In order to gain hours for cosmetology, you must be within a licensed school. So that contingency plan will need to change to whatever whatever contingency will work. So either they transfer to a licensed school or something, but working in a licensed salon will not work for a contingency plan. The apprentice section, it's your page 5. The apprentice section for cosmetology states that the students will work in a salon of their choosing. And that is also not accurate. They will not choose their salon. It will be a partnership between you and a salon that is willing to take your students. So you will need to establish those relationships rather than the students.
Ms. Russell, if you don't mind, this is Roxana Gamuzio. The key word there is a supervising professional. So the statute actually doesn't necessarily address the salon as much as the supervising professional. Thank you, sorry.
This is Becky Russell. So if you can clean it up to say the licensed supervising professional, but it's still not the student's choice. It is a relationship that's formed with the school and that professional.
Yes, ma'am. Elizabeth Moore here. And on page 5, I have that supervising licensed professional listed under the second semester. But we just allow our students to go under an interview process to make sure that the salon is the best fit for the student and the salon alike. But I have partnered up with several supervising licensed professionals to take on those students. They have a list that they can pick from if they do not have somebody that they can I guess supervise or use as a supervised licensed professional if they don't want to meet the requirements that the school requires for them to obtain their license, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But we have probably have a list of 15 licensed professionals ready to take on apprenticeship students, actually.
Tamika Turner. I have a question about the square footage of your spaces. What is the square footage of your suites?
My 2 suites combined are about 2,400 square feet. And that I have one room that I have not listed on my floor plan because I honestly did not know at the time with the 5 days that I had to do exactly what I wanted to do with it. But that's to my office. And right now, I think we're just going to make it like an enrollment center.
Thank you.
This is Becky Russell. Also on your page 5, you mention practical and theory grades under apprenticeship. And you must remember that all practical applications are taught in a salon rather than in the school. So they should have theory grades in the school because you're teaching that 750 of theory lessons only. I'm not sure the practical grade portion. Just making sure that you understand that 750 is in theory only.
Yes, ma'am. Elizabeth Moore here. I think that was some verbiage that I had taken from my traditional breakdown, but I will definitely change that in there. We know that the 750s will be practical or will be theory only, and then the practical learning will be done during the 750s with the supervising licensed professional.
This is Becky Russell. You have listed on your page 6, and I think in subsequent pages, because you list them for nails, aesthetics, lash, instructor, etc. You have it listed that the students will be on campus from 9 to 3, and then be doing distance education from 3 to 7. Will they be doing that? I'm not sure how distance education from 3 to 7 would work. If they are leaving your school, there's going to be some kind of gap between the 9 to 3 and 3 to 7. So if they're in school from 9 to 3, but then going to be online from 3 to 7, there's no gap in order for them to travel home. Or, I mean, I'm assuming they're not going to stay at the school for their distance portion.
No, this is Elizabeth Moore. You're correct. On there for our hybrid nail tech course, it is optional hybrid hours. I do not require that for them. It is kind of designed for more mature learners that need to get out of into their own setting to do studying, but that's not required. So that's actually not even factored into their contract completion date and contract end dates. They just have those 3 to 7 p.m. in the afternoons allotted to them for optional hybrid hours.
This is Becky Russell again. On your page 13, you have listed HIPAA, and I think the verbiage that you need is FERPA. HIPAA has to do with healthcare, FERPA with schools, or education, I guess I should say. You may want to look at that.
Yes, ma'am, this is Elizabeth Moore. We were actually required for our vocational rehabilitation students that we added that in for the state of Tennessee for us to accept those students into the program. But I can add HIPAA slash FIPA policy. Sorry. Was writing at the same time.
Tamika Turner. On your page 5, I have a question about the breakdown of your hybrid days. Did we discuss it already, Becca? It says hybrid days are Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 8:30 to 5, and then in-person learning days are Mondays, 8:30 to 4. Can you tell me how your hybrid days are broken down? 'Cause I'm not understanding. I'm sorry, it's not clear to me.
Yes, ma'am. This is Elizabeth Moore again. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we utilize SEMA's online learning platform. So that's where they will get a lot of their chapter and book workbook learning done for them to be able to get those hours hybrid. So on the in-person learning days on Mondays is when they will be coming in and going over whatever chapters, maybe doing a little project with the instructor or any kind of intense training or more advanced training that they would need to get through those chapters. Obviously, there's some chapters that are a lot easier than others, and some of them take like a little project to make them set in or anything. So that's where the Monday from 8:30 to 4 in person comes into play. And then the hybrid days are going to be done with the instructor online with the students at the same time. So they will open up usually. Obviously, I'm going to let my instructor kind of help me make a schedule that's feasible for her and her students, but start off with like a Zoom meeting in the morning, get started, let them do some hybrid learning online, break out, and then in the evening they will get online together and kind of do a closure for the day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
This is Becky Russell. If you are having them to be on Zoom in the morning and in the afternoon, that would be synchronous. Is it scheduled to be asynchronous in between? Meaning that there will not be an instructor in between the morning and the afternoon?
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, we're here. I keep on remembering to say my name. No, the instructor will be online synchronous with those students going over whatever chapter materials being discussed at that time. So they will be logged in online. They will be available to those students from Tuesday to Wednesday, 8:30 to 5 all day too.
This is Becky Russell. On your page 18, it is required that the student signs saying that they understand and agree to the terms of your enrollment agreement before payment. However, on your page 18, it specifically says after the deposit and application fees are paid.
Yeah. Sorry, Elizabeth Moore here. I can change that verbiage to make it more feasible and more direct.
Becky Russell, it must say before any payment. The student must sign and agree to all of those terms and conditions before there's any payment.
Okay, perfect. Elizabeth, perfect. Before any payments are made, terms and conditions must be agreed upon.
This is Roxana Gamusio. Members, are there any other questions? Ms. Russell? No?
This is Amy Tanksley. I was going to say the same thing. If there are any other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve with those noted changes to the application.
We have a motion by Amy Tanksley and a second by Monica Lemons. This is Roxana Gamusio by roll call vote. Members, if you will, let me know if you're in agreement. If not, I will take note of that as well. These are with the adjustments and changes that Ms. Moore is going to be sending to me based on everything that you've gone over. By roll call vote, Ms. Susan Arnold.
Yes.
Thank you. Perry Baldwin. Bernetta Carlton. Monica Lemons.
Yes.
David McElreath.
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran. Mr. Moran stepped away, but we do still have quorum. Ms. Lane Petty.
Yes.
Becky Russell.
Yes.
Amy Tanksley.
Yes.
Lori Turner.
Yes.
And Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for joining us. And if you have any other questions, you can send them to me with your revisions. Thank you.
Elizabeth Moore here. Thank you, and I appreciate you and the board today.
You are very welcome. Members, next is on page 90, starting on page 97 of your iPads. This is Clarabelle Institute of Cosmetology. This is a change in ownership. Ms. Ashley Thomas is participating virtually to go over any questions you might have. This school is located in Adamsville, Tennessee. The former school is Journey Academy of Cosmetology. They are changing the name as well as the ownership. You have before you the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, catalog, contingency plan, all received timely. Ms. Russell, I will turn it over to you, ma'am.
Becky Russell. Ms. Thomas, would you like to tell us a bit about your school?
Yes, ma'am. The school has been here, I guess it's been open about 2.5 years. I became an instructor here, and I had the opportunity to buy the school. So here I am.
Pardon me for interrupting you. I need you to introduce yourself, please. And Ms. Thomas, each time that you speak, I will need you to say your name on the record. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Ashley Thomas. So I've had the opportunity to buy the school, and here I am. The name Claire Bell came from, I had a little baby girl in 24, June of 24, who was born sleeping. So I thought this was a great name to carry on her name. We're in a little town in Adamsville, Tennessee, and I'm super excited just to get this started.
Ms. Thomas, I'd like to start with a few questions. This is Becky Russell. The um, on your blueprint, it appears that there are some of your stations that are required for the school. It appears that some of those are in the classroom. I'm not sure how you plan to utilize those in the classroom. However, I will say that according to our rules, you must have a separate salon or clinical space and a separate classroom. So I'm not sure if the location of that will hinder what you're doing in your school. I think that if you're using those for your clinical stations that are included within your clinical stations, then those are going to have to be moved out into the clinical floor and not in the classroom. Our inspector will check your equipment, and I'm sure that they can go over those and make that determination. But just make sure that you understand that clients cannot be taken in a classroom while you're actively teaching cosmetology, the classroom portion.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Thomas.
Ashley Thomas. Those 4 chairs that are in the classroom, we actually have class in the mornings. So everybody's in there, but those 4 are mainly for students that are not out on the floor yet, that are there. You know, I can kind of assist them and see them a lot better, while in the classroom, but no clients are actually going to be in the classroom.
This is Becky Russell. Joe, I'd have to lean on you for this, since it does say that the clinical space and the classroom space has to be separate.
So I'm looking at the specific rule right now, and it reads for all schools other than specialized schools. Oh, no, sorry. For all schools other than specialized schools as described in subparagraph 4C, the floor plan shall provide for and the school shall contain at least 2,200 square feet of instructional floor space, including an enclosed classroom for theory instruction. And I believe, Ms. Russell, you're focusing on the enclosed room for theory instruction. So yes, a portion of the floor plan will have to be dedicated to the traditional understanding of a classroom with the desk, chairs, and presentations without any of the centers or service areas in that area.
You gotta move them.
Okay, this is Becky Russell again. Can you tell me about your part-time hours? I was a little unclear. I was looking at your days and hours of operation. That's your page 5. And I was a little unclear about your part-time hours.
Yes, part-time hours. We usually like to get at least 16 hours a week. A lot of those, I don't really have any part-time students. The ones that I have had, they come in, if they're seniors in high school, they're allowed to leave at 11, maybe 12. A lot of those will come in a few days a week and get there at least 16 hours. And that's what I consider part-time. Sorry, Ashley Thomas here. I forgot to say my name. I think that answered your question. Did it?
Becky Russell, it just needs to be clear on their application or enrollment agreement what hours that you're expecting that they would be there. So you do have listed your hours of operation, But even if that is that you have to write in the part-time hours of the students who are part-time, you need a place to state that this is a full-time student and this is the hours that they will attend, or this is a part-time student and these are the hours that they will attend.
Okay, Ashley Thomas here. Okay, I do have, I'm not sure if this is, but on what's on my page, your page 10, I believe. And it does say hours contracted with school, number of months complete, scheduled hours per week. It does have all that on there on the enrollment form there, kind of talking about their fees and all that stuff.
Becky Russell, can you tell me what page that is? What is the page number at the bottom of your sheet?
5 on the bottom of my sheet, where it's got, sorry, Ashley Thomas, program options, total hours type.
Becky Russell, I don't think that we are seeing this location. Hang on just a second.
I think you're in the right place. This is Roxana Gamuziar, 106, which is her page 5. It's the page you were addressing a minute ago. But to your point, it doesn't say how many full-time hours are expected or how many part-time hours are expected.
Becky Russell, I think you just need to clarify this information for the student. I just want to make sure that they are aware of the timeframes that they're expected to be in school.
Ashley Thomas, yes, ma'am, I can definitely change that.
Becky Russell, do you offer any virtual options?
Ashley Thomas, no, ma'am, not at the moment.
Becky Russell, your page 15, it talks about your contingency plan, and it says that the students' transcripts are being sent to another school, and it lists a specific school that it appears that you're going to send all student transcripts there. I'm not certain the legality of that due to FERPA laws. Without a student requesting that you send their transcripts to another school, I'm not certain that you can do that. So maybe a better option would be to say, upon student's request, you will send it to another school.
Ashley Thomas, yes, ma'am, I can definitely change that as well.
Becky Russell, can you tell me, do you have a place where it says that the students will receive a copy of the agreement? I saw the place where they're going to sign prior to payment, or that they are going to sign and the school rep is going to sign, but I didn't see that the students were going to receive a copy.
Ashley Thomas, no, ma'am, I actually don't think I do have that on there. I can add that, though. I can definitely make another page for that.
Lori Turner, on our page 111, their page 10, it says students will receive their kits with school assistance after 200 hours of enrollment. Are they, what are they using for supplies up to that 200 hours?
Ashley Thomas. Most of them, honestly, they will receive their kits sooner than the 200 hours. But here at the school, we have everything. We have mannequin heads. I keep different mannequin heads. I keep absolutely everything they would need here to fully function and to learn with.
Tamika Turner, I have a question about your page 15 under your contingency plan. It says, in the event that Clarabelle Institute if cosmetology is closed for an extended period, 30 consecutive days or more, students will have the option to complete their educational hours via Zoom with a licensed instructor. But you don't have that down as, like as a hybrid option already in the presentation that you have today, but also, Becca, and correct me, or Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. If the student has 750, 800 hours left, and she's telling them that they can finish online, wouldn't that be considered virtual, and we don't have a virtual option?
Joe Wharton, counsel for the board. The board has approved virtual education methods up to this point in time. Not to get into the details of our discussion towards the end of this meeting, I believe we're confusing asynchronous, that is not live education, with distance education. So to my understanding, unless the members of the board see something that I'm missing, virtual education can be offered as long as it's synchronous and the board has approved that with the application of the school. We've been requiring the schools to disclose to us if they have virtual teaching methods, how that would be done. And the board's standard practice up to this point in time has been to confirm that that is synchronous education with live instruction and then approve. So based on them being approved for virtual education, I believe they could offer that to transfer students.
Okay, so they would have to be approved through the board to offer the virtual. Is that what you just said?
If I could add, and this is Roxana Gamusio, with COVID, and those of you that were on the board in 2020, we understood that that education, as long as the instructor is available, that virtual education could be approved. So all those schools we had in the pipeline were not forced to reapply and let us know that they are doing that. The new schools have ever since been telling us that, any of those schools that have changed, but as long as they are aware that it is with the instructor present at all time to offer synchronous, they've been able to do that.
And was this school previously approved for virtual? I know you said that the schools during COVID, they didn't have to go back through, but the new schools since then?
This is Roxana Gamusio.
Mhm.
Previously,
I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Tamika Turner was speaking. So based on Ms. Thomas's information, this school that she's purchased was only was only licensed for 2 years or so. So they would have come before the board and been approved to consider however hybrid they wanted their model to look like. And in this point in time, all that really matters is what Ms. Thomas is presenting to us, because it's a brand new license for the change of ownership.
Okay, and that's why I was asking for clarity, because she said that there isn't a virtual option, but in the contingency plan, she said that there is a virtual option, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood that it's okay.
So that question is coming, Ms. Thomas, from Ms. Tamika Turner. I believe her question is, are you or are you not offering a virtual option as part of your school? And the virtual Zoom, in the event that the contingency plan is needed, would at this point in time need to include an instructor available at all times?
Ashley Thomas. I'm not at the moment offering that, so I can take that out of there, if need be.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
This is Amy Tanksley. If there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the noted changes.
Lane Petty, I'll second.
Roxana Gamusio, thank you, members. We have a motion and a second on the record by roll call vote. If you are in agreement, please say yes. If not, I will write that down so we can proceed. And there are several changes that Ms. Thomas will need to make. Ms. Thomas, that does include also an updated floor plan, just to make sure, because that'll be a key component. If you can send those to me later, we should be fine. By roll call vote, members, Ms. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Perry Baldwin, Ms. Bernetta Carlton, Ms. Monica Lemons,
Yes.
Mr. David McElreath,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Ms. Lane Petty,
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Ms. Lori Turner,
Yes.
and Ms. Tamika Turner.
Yes.
All in favor, thank you, members. And Ms. Thomas, congratulations and thank you.
Thank y'all very much. Have a great day.
You too. Members, we're on our last school. This starts on page 128 of your iPads. I'll give you a minute to get there. This school is Edge Design Center LLC. It's a new cosmetology school. I believe we have one of our owners here with us. And so I will let him answer any questions that you have. This school is located in Deckard, Tennessee. You have the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, and contingency plan for the school. And if you give me a moment, I'll make sure that his mic is set up. And I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Russell.
For the record, this is Joey Brassfield with Edge Design Center in Deckard, Tennessee.
We'd like to welcome you, this Becky Russell. Would you like to tell us a bit about your school?
Sure, yes, ma'am. The Edge Design Center was developed back in 2002 by, is it on?
Yeah, it is.
Was created by Brent Borson. From there on, we've developed opportunities just online and advanced educational programs for future professionals as well as professionals in the industry. We have started looking into state level of education for a couple of years, and we're moving forward with that now. And with our programs, we still develop special needs programs for autism and stuff like that. So if you notice on our 10,000 square foot programs, we have multiple classrooms to be able to give those in need those needs. Myself is autistic, and when I was going through the program, my instructor, Brent Borson, realized that I needed that extra special side-by-side opportunity, and that's the only reason I was able to succeed in the industry. So that's why we want to give back at this state level education program desired.
Becky Russell, thank you so much. We will start with a few questions. Your floor plan that you've submitted, you've got one document that has the sizes of the space and then a second one that kind of defines where equipment will be. And we are very appreciative for that. This looks very neat and clean. There is one question that I have, just because the two floor plans, it appears that class 2 on one floor plan is enclosed and the other one is not. Can you tell me, is that class enclosed, or will that be used as the salon space or a classroom?
Joey Brassfield speaking. So yes, ma'am, my engineers are very developed on blueprints, so I had to create it in a beautiful way. So yes, ma'am, that is every one of the classrooms are closed. If you seek there on right beneath that, that's going to be an open floor plan. That's where we'll have our 20 stations. But class 2 is going to be closed as well with a 42-inch door. Everything's enclosed, yes, ma'am.
Becky Russell, thank you so much for clarifying. Can you tell me your days and hours of operation? Did I look over that somewhere?
Yes, ma'am. So if you go to
I apologize. I need your
Sorry.
name on the record.
yes,
Thank
Joey
you.
Brassfield speaking again. I do apologize with that. On our student catalog, when we go through our let's see this on the page. Our operation time is going to be Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. That page is going to be on page 16 within our catalog under number 28, our schedule. They will take a 30-minute lunch break, 5-minute breaks prior to and after lunch, and we'll start our sanitational duties at 4:15 to 4:30.
Becky Russell, thank you for that clarification, but we do need that to also appear on the enrollment agreement. Quick fix, just put that on their enrollment agreement. That way they're clear about what they are signing to.
Joey Brassfield speaking. Yes, ma'am, we'll make those changes correctly.
Becky Russell. On your page 2, it has the weeks and months to graduation. The chart appears to be correct. For the full-time hours, the sentence above it is incorrect. And then your part-time hours do not seem to work. The math doesn't seem to work out for the part-time hours.
Joey Bristol speaking. That's going to be on the enrollment agreement, correct? So
Becky
looking-
Russell, yes, it is.
Yes, ma'am. Joy Breast was speaking on this behalf. Yes, ma'am. Looking at the approximates, we'll correct that behavior on that. It says 11.5, and I do see the differences on those categories, so we'll make sure they match up exactly.
Becky Russell, on your contingency plan, I think that you just have a clerical error on there. It says George Career Institute, and I think that you mean Georgia.
Yes, ma'am. Joy Breast was speaking. Yes, ma'am. That's Georgia Career Institute, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We'll make that correction as well.
Becky Russell, board members, do you have any questions? That concludes my questions listed.
This is Amy Tanksley. I'm just clarifying this cosmetology program that you'll be offering is an in-person program, not an apprentice.
Joey Bresto speaking. Yes, ma'am. It's direct students one-on-one with our in-class program. And we are looking at doing a hybrid program in the future for where we're located. We're about an hour and a half away from any major city. So I know a lot of our students, even our advanced students, are traveling pretty good distance. So that's something we're looking for in the future. So if there's, that's a good question that I was going to ask afterwards. With that program, is that something I should suggest now, or should we wait till after the approval of the cosmetology school before moving forward with that type of education?
Pardon me, Roxanne, I think I can answer. At this point in time, I wouldn't recommend, since you don't have it, you've not planned to do it, you've not thought it out, that you present that necessarily. As long as a hybrid model or a virtual model follows the laws and rules, then that's an easy piece. And if you've got any questions down the road, definitely reach me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Amy Tanksley. If there's no other questions or concerns, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the noted changes.
Lori Turner, second.
Thank you, members. This is Roxana Gamucio. We have a motion and a second properly noted to approve this school. This is a brand new cosmetology school with the changes noted. Those changes will be sent directly to me, and then we will work out the inspection piece. When I call your name, members, please go ahead and let me know if you are in agreement. If not, I will count those as well. Ms. Susan Arnold?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Perry Baldwin?
Yes.
Ms. Bernetta Carlton? Ms. Monica Lemons?
Yes.
Mr. David McElreath?
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Moran?
Yes.
Ms. Lane Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell?
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tanksley?
Yes.
Ms. Lori Turner?
Yes.
And Ms. Tamika Turner?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Congratulations.
Joey Bresto speaking. Thank you very kindly, board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, members. We are going to go ahead and switch to the legal report, if that's okay with you. We don't have any others really appearing before the board, and we'll get back on track. So I'm going to turn it over to our attorney, Michael Underhill. Mike, thank you for waiting on us.
Good morning, board. Michael Underhill, litigation counsel for the board. We have 127 cases on this legal report. We have one represent, 29 Barber cases, and 97 cosmetology cases. If the board has questions regarding my recommendations, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
It's Roxana Gamusi, sorry to add these the redacted cases, of course, were emailed to everybody ahead of time so you could review them, but they are on the separate item on your iPads if you'll switch to the legal report. And Mike's happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Becky Russell, Mike, I have noticed multiple times that it will state one legal case and then the next one will say it's a duplicate. It would duplicate another case that's there. Numbers 52 and 53, would that also, are these not duplicates? Let's see.
Michael Underhill, on that, on 52 and 53, that came out of the same inspection. So that's why I will reference one with the other.
Becky Russell, I guess my question is, there are a couple of times that you don't reference them, so that fine would not duplicate itself if we kept the 52 and 53. If we kept the recommendations, that's not duplicating that particular fine.
Well, that's a circumstance where we have the shop owner's individual license that's involved. And so obviously I want that part of the penalty to go with that license so that we can keep up with a first, second, third offense and so on. If the board would like, I can deduct 52 by $100 and just make that 1,000. And in those limited circumstances, we can separate those out. I know technically the shop has an individual that has an expired individual license. It just happens to be the owner of the shop.
Becky Russell, I'm not in favor of deducting. Like I like it the way that it is. I just want to make sure that we are consistent in the way that we fine others as well. I just wanted to make sure and clarify that's okay the way that it's written, that we're not treating that person unfairly. And I think that you've clarified that we are not.
Michael Underhill, we see that every once in a while, but not too much. But that's a limited circumstance.
This is Becky Russell. A couple of times within this document, I have seen correctable sanitation issues, no notice of violation, and I'm having a hard time that we're not at least giving a warning to these folks who have sanitation violations. I mean, if we're being technical, all sanitation violations are correctable. But if these folks have sanitation violations, at a minimum, I would think that we would have to give them a warning.
Okay. Well, typically what we have in those, a notice of violation does not go out, but what the inspector has done is they have like counseled them or shown them, hey, this is how it needs to be done in the future. That's why I use that verbiage on those circumstances. But in the future, if you want a letter of warning to go out on those, I can do that on those ones where they've been counseled already. They've technically received a verbal letter of warning.
Becky Russell, will that show up on their record? So we kind of have a record of former complaints with them. I guess that's my thing. Like if they're just going out and verbally saying, to correct this, if we have no record of it, how many times have they told them this already?
Michael Underhill, what I can do is as I go back through, I don't know which numbers in particular that those situations are, but in going back through, I can change those circumstances to a letter of warning referencing the specific sanitation issue or issues.
Becky Russell, I think that would be helpful just so for tracking purposes. I don't want that same violation to be happening in shops over and over again.
Well, I do know, and I'm sure the board has seen, if it becomes an issue, then they do issue a notice of violation for that. I know, again, that's the discretion of the inspector that we're getting into, but yeah, typically if they're not learning the lesson, then they'll issue a notice of violation.
Becky Russell, and this is the last question I have. Number 107, there's an unlicensed shop. It was open for business. No customers were present at the time. The recommendation is for a letter of warning. Is there a reason that we are not issuing a fine? I know that there were no clients present getting services, but it did say that it was open for business. Is that not enough to warrant having a unlicensed shop?
There was a case that I was previously involved in where the court made the determination that due to the word practice being in the statute, that means actively engaged with a client.
Amy Tanksley, but we could flag that one for reinspection, correct?
That's fine. So with 107, does the board want to go back collectively? The
Amy
board?
Tanksley, yes, that would be my preference.
Okay. Again, Michael Underhill, if nobody's being actively serviced, it's not going to change things, but we can definitely try.
Tamika Turner, do we know if this particular shop has since applied for their license?
That I do not know. As of the time of this publication, it has not.
Okay, so I'm in favor with Ms. Tanksley if we could have it re-inspected because, do we know if they've made a correction to the issue that we had at the time? Thank you.
Chairperson Russell, again, Michael Underhill, was that the last question that you had?
Becky Russell, that is all of my questions. We'll give the board members just a moment. And then if there's a motion to accept.
Chairperson Russell, again, Michael Underhill, and would that be to accept as amended since we are adding letters of warning and then changing the recommendation number 107?
Becky Russell, yes, that is what I would suggest that they,
That would be the motion.
yes.
I'd like a motion to approve, Amy Tanksley. I'll get used to this. I'd like to make a motion to approve the legal report with the amendment.
I'll second.
Monica Lemons, I make second.
Thank you, members. We have a proper motion and a second to accept the legal report, which contained 127 cases as amended by roll call vote. If you let me know if you're in agreement. If not, we will look at those as well. Ms. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Perry Baldwin, Ms. Bernetta Carlton, Ms. Monica Lemons,
Yes.
Mr. David McElreath,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Ms. Lane Petty,
Yes.
Ms. Becky Russell,
Yes.
Ms. Amy Tansley,
Yes.
Ms. Lori Turner,
Yes.
thank you, and Ms. Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. Mike, thank you for the report and your time. Thank you so much. Members, that concludes the legal report. I'm going to turn the meeting over to our legal counsel, Joe Wardham, to go over the legislative piece and anything that has been filed in the pipeline before we proceed back to our presentation and the applications to test. Joe, it's yours.
Good morning. This is Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. There are two pieces of legislation that are currently being worked on in this session that I wanted to bring to the board's attention. They both address our industry directly. The first is Senate Bill 1800, and then the House Bill number for that is 2056. This bill requires that schools, barbering schools and cosmetology schools and specialty schools report student hour numbers to the board using a created student ID number and no longer use a social security number or a portion of the social security number to report that information to the board. These provisions would include instructor trainees and then also instructors obtaining CE. So essentially any education reporting that a school would do to the board, they would use a manufactured number tied to that individual to report that information. That is that bill. And then the next bill that I wanted to discuss with you all is Senate Bill 2224. And House Bill, it's the same thing. The House Bill number is 2530. This bill essentially adds a definition to makeup application services and would have those services exempted from the cosmetology licensure statute. So specifically, it exempts makeup application services from the definition of aesthetics as it currently exists, and then adds a provision to the cosmetology statute that includes the exclusions from licensure and states that anyone engaged in makeup application services as defined would be excluded from needing to obtain either a cosmetology or aesthetics license. That bill, the status of that bill, I looked it up before I came down here. The last action on that bill was April 2nd and April 1st. So last week, it's still in the House, or it's still in the committees of both the Senate and the House. But obviously I wanted to keep you guys up to date on that. It's still in the committees. I don't have a further report on that, but as things move forward, we'll obviously keep you up to date on all this legislation. As always, I like to give you the website that you can pull this information directly yourself. It's offered by the General Assembly. And just once again, that website is www.capitol.tn.gov. With that, I'll open up the floor to any questions. Thank you.
Tamika Turner, could you give me the Senate bill and the House bill for that makeup, the makeup piece that you were just discussing?
Joe Wharton, yes. The makeup bill number, the Senate bill number is Senate Bill 2224. So if I'm reading it out loud, 2224. And then the House bill number is 2530, so 2530. No problem.
Becky Russell, Joe, the makeup application, does that include something similar to the braider's registration? Would there be a registration, or would we just remove it from our services?
Joe Wharton, great question. It mirrors shampooing. So essentially, shampooing was removed from the definition of aesthetics and then essentially inputted into the statute as an exclude or an exception to the licensure statute. So it mirrors that. So it's slightly different than hair braiding and everything, which requires registration. This would be excluded from registration or licensure.
Roxana Gamusio, members, any other questions regarding either of these bills? Okay, by the time we meet in June, we will most likely know if they've proceeded out of all the committees, and the governor has until, I believe, July 1st to sign them. So we will give you any final updates at the June meeting. Thank you, Joe, very much. Members, if you'll switch back to your presentation, the next item on our agenda are the applications to test. I'll give everyone a minute. They start on page 161. These applications to test or request to go ahead and obtain a license are coming from Joseph Jeffries, Darius Mack, Cameron Nelson, Eric Payton, Michael Peoples, and Jesse Williams. These applicants have a felony conviction within the last 3 years and or are currently incarcerated. They are requesting to take the exams, and submitted before you are recommendations or letters from either the institution or an instructor, disclosure from the student. And the board always approves an agreed order for a 2-year probationary license. Once that order is signed, we can proceed where they're either going to test or proceed with their license. You also have before you Caroline Boo. She was already approved. The board about 1.5 years ago, maybe longer, gave me permission on anyone that is not incarcerated and needing to work for Joe and I to review those documents and approve them. These are, again, felony applicants with a felony within the last 3 years, or if they're incarcerated, we do the agreed order as well. You've got all the records before you. I'll let you review, and if these are acceptable, as we do with each meeting, we would need a motion and a second to proceed with our applicants.
Dave McAreeth, I make a motion that they be accepted.
Lori Turner, second.
Thank you. This is Roxana Gamusio. We have a properly motioned first and a second to approve these applicants as presented. Members, as I go through roll call vote, if you agree, please let me know. If not, we will look at that as well. Ms. Susan Arnold.
Yes.
Thank you. Terry Baldwin. Yes. Thank you. Ms. Bernetta Carlton. Thank you. Ms. Monica Lemons.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. David McElreath.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Moran.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Lane Petty. Yes. Thank you. Ms. Becky Russell. Thank you. Ms. Amy Tansley. Thank you. Ms. Lori Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, members. That takes care of our applicants to test. On your iPad, starting page 204, we are looking at our reciprocal applicants. We don't always have reciprocity presented before you, mostly because the board has a great consistent path in which we can review those applicants and proceed with licensure and not hold them back. The first applicant that you have before you is requesting to be approved via reciprocity. This is Ms. Ann Duck Fan. Ms. Fan recently applied with a Texas certificate showing an initial license date of November 14th, 2025. In October of 2024, she applied with a license certificate from Nevada. The board was able to confirm with the Nevada director that the certificate did not belong to her. Ms. Fan therefore was denied that reciprocity application because of the records not being factual. This is coming before the board. Anytime a licensee has unfactual documentation, then anytime they decide to reapply via a different path, it comes before you to approve. In most cases, these are approved, and in this particular case, you've got all her documents from you. The certificate from Texas is on page 208.
Amy Tanksley, are we making a motion to approve her to test or to have her license transferred to Tennessee?
This is a part of the Roxana Gamusio. This presentation is reciprocity. She has a license, at least we are seeing the license from Texas. If you look on page 209, it shows that she went to school in Texas starting May 2025, finished in September 2025. Those records would be after the fraudulent or not accurate information from the state of Nevada. So it would be at your discretion. Based on this information, she currently holds an active license and she would meet the reciprocity requirements.
Becky Russell, we are talking about a manicurist license, but the application, it says license type cosmetologist.
No, it's manicures.
Okay. Do you see the application says cosmetologist at the top?
The one from December. If you look on page 204, it is from December of 2025. That's her current application. When she applied previously, I believe both are manicurists. Page 204 shows an out-of-state manicurist application. And her license from Texas on 208 is for manicurist. When she applied in October of 2024, it was also a manicurist.
Becky Russell, on the top of page 204, I'm assuming it's talking about the
That's the board.
cosmetology board. Okay.
That's the board.
Just making sure.
Our schools present it the same way. Our shops are the same way. That's a great question, but that's the board itself. It's not Barber.
Amy Tanksley, I'd like to make a motion to approve the license reciprocity to Tennessee.
Lane Petty will second.
Thank you. We have a properly motioned motion and second to accept Ms. Ann Duck Fan's application and reciprocity information from the state of Texas. This is for a manicurist license. By roll call vote, members, you would be agreeing to accept this license, meaning she'd be approved and proceed with an active license in Tennessee. If you are in disagreement, also please let me know. Ms. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Perry Baldwin, Bernetta Carlton, Monica Lemons,
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Lori Turner,
Yes.
and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, members. Next, and give me a minute to switch. We have a similar but not identical situation. This is for a request for a manicure license with education from Tennessee for Quan Van Tran. Mr. Tran passed the practical exam on February 25th of 2026. He was previously licensed in Tennessee via reciprocity from the state of Colorado. He surrendered that license in September of 2025 because the board was able to confirm through an audit process that the Colorado license did not match his information. The names matched, social security numbers and date of birth did not. So he surrendered that license. At this time, he is being presented before you again, similar to the first one, because the information for the first license was not valid. It would appear that he attended a school in Tennessee. The practical exam is on page 222 of your documentation. So although it is approving an initial license from Tennessee, he's being presented with reciprocal because his first license did start out as a reciprocity license.
Make a motion to approve his license. Amy Tanksley.
Perry Baldwin, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second properly noted on the record. Members by roll call vote. If you are in agreement, please say yes. If you are not, I'm also happy to take that information. Ms. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Perry Baldwin, Bernetta Carlton, Monica Lemons,
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Lori Turner,
Yes.
and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, members. We are on to our miscellaneous applications and those, it is one applicant, give me just a minute, and it's on page 233. This is a request to add and grant an extension to complete the school coursework pursuant to Tennessee Code annotated 62-4-123, which states a student shall have 7 years from the date the student originally enrolled in a school to complete the required coursework. Ms. Jaden Ann Ruggiero is, you have her documents starting on page 233. She provided an email explaining that she had failed to complete the coursework, the reasons behind it, her repeated, I guess, attempts to reach the board. She started her education on May 5th of 2012. That document is on page 233. She's needing to complete, of course, 1,500 hours, but is missing about a third of those. And so that her request is that you approve those hours so she doesn't lose them all and can continue her education. The board has extended that 7-year on a few occasions by a few months. This goes back to 2012 for various reasons. I just want to remind the board, you all are always consistent with your decisions, but you have her information before you.
Amy Tanksley, we are approving, extending her hours. Do we put another deadline on it or?
You have never extended hours this far, is the only thing I want to just remind the board. But yes, you would be extending the hours if you so choose. We have done that on occasion for a few months. These hours go back from 2012, and the law gives them 7 years. Just whatever you set precedents for, we've just got to be consistent to continue that. You've done it for 1 or 2 individuals incarcerated, and the facility didn't offer it. We've done it for an extreme medical situation, and we've extended 2 to 3 months for individuals that had just a few hours left and the school came before saying they couldn't finish. So that's basically all of the information to make sure that you have everything.
Amy Tanksley, can you clarify how many hours she has?
So that is on her withdrawal document on page 233. She has 1,040 hours. So she's missing about a third. Your mic? I'm sorry.
This is 14 years. Just want to clarify that it was 14 years.
The law gives us 7 years from the start date. Her start date goes back to May 5th, 2012. And so it would have needed to be completed by November of 2019, if I'm doing the math correctly.
And she had to stop school, sorry, Lori Turner. It says she had to stop school because the school closed down.
And unfortunately, schools do close.
Right.
We've got several on the legal report this time that we addressed as well, but that is her explanation, is one of her explanations. Yes, it's, and her email is before you on page 234.
Amy Tanksley, if we approve or allow her to keep these 1,040 hours, she would need to clearly complete the remaining hours and sit for both exams in order to become licensed.
Roxana Gamuzio, yes, the other requirements cannot be waived.
It says in this email they're requesting for her to finish those in the salon. Is that what, am I reading that correctly? Can she not please finish those in my salon?
So to answer that particular portion of the email, she would not be able to unless she started an apprenticeship program with 0 hours. An apprenticeship program can be done under a supervising professional in a salon. Otherwise, it can't. And you as members, know the reasons behind apprenticeship and how that would work. So she would need to attend if you extended it in a traditional school based on the fact that in 2012, there was no apprenticeship. And so that wasn't her path either way.
Becky Russell, I'm struggling with this one being that far out. If it had been just a few months, that's one thing, but for it to be this many years, my suggestion might be to her that, an apprenticeship school may be the best option for her. But I don't think, as for myself, I don't think that I can approve accepting these hours that far out.
Lori Turner, same. I think it sets a precedent going forward that we probably don't want to start.
Members, I will need a motion with whatever your decision is and then a second, please. This is Roxana Gamuzio.
Lori Turner, I make a motion, we deny.
Monica Lemons, I second.
We have a proper motion and a second to deny the request to extend the 1,000 plus hours beyond since they were started in 2012 to this point. As I read your name, members, if you can let me know if you're in agreement. If you are not, I'm happy to take that as well. Susan Arnold,
Agree.
Terry Baldwin, Bernetta Carlton. Thank you. Monica Lemons,
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran, Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley. Thank you. Lori Turner
Yes.
and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Okay. The ayes to proceed and not grant the extension still have it. I appreciate the vote, and that concludes the miscellaneous section of our presentation. The next item, members, is our budget on page 237. You will see our financial documentation. This does show that the board is $354,000, $354,278 in as a deficit, which is pretty high at this point. It leaves our reserve balance at $775,631. As we hear all day long through every industry, including when we go to fill up our tanks, everything has gone up. Our cost for inspections are a bit higher, technology. And so this board being as large as it is and having the number of complaints that they do, there was a up-to-date distribution between investigations and inspections that kind of pushed this further down into the deficit. At this time, as you know, we don't have a plan to raise fees. There may come a point where we need to. Several of the other regulatory boards have needed to recently. So we will just keep an eye on it. And of course, we can always have those conversations. This particular portion is informational only unless you have any questions for me regarding the budget.
Amy Tanksley, question, the reserve balance, is there a minimum reserve balance that the board must keep?
That is Roxana Gamusio. That's a fantastic question. When the board is in the red, has a deficit for 2 years in a row, we go before the legislative body to justify why we are not self-sufficient. I've done that for several years and often invite a board member to come with me. We present the explanation of everything. At that point in time, generally the conversation is that the reserve have no more than 2.5 times your annual expenses. Our expenses are in excess of $3 million a year, so we are not in excess of. And the excess is looked at carefully just in case we are overcharging for licenses and maybe need to reduce licenses. Maybe our reserve is too high. That's not our case. So in this point, we never want to completely be out of reserves, and we wouldn't get there. But it's something, at least with this year lining up, that we're going to keep a close on. And so there's no minimum in the reserve. We just definitely can't use up the reserve before addressing if we need a fee change. Does that answer your question, Ms. Tanksley?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to Joe. This is under our new business, and Joe is going to guide us through at the last meeting and 2 meetings at least before then. We discussed our possibility of a hybrid model, a synchronous versus asynchronous model. What does our curriculum need to look like? At least 3 of you sent me great information to review. I'll turn it over to Joe. You also saw the last drafted document, but at this meeting, hopefully we can write down and pinpoint how we want to proceed. And knowing that we have rulemaking hearings, that everyone will be able, other schools and individuals, to opine at that time. So I will turn it over to Joe. Thank you, sir.
Joe Warden, legal counsel for the board. Good morning, board members. Just to catch us all up on where we ended at the last meeting. During our last meeting, I gave you a suggested proposal draft of rules. The board, which I greatly approve, at the end of the meeting took a roll call vote on where we stood after our previous discussion. The board voted that we were going to limit distance education, virtual education, distance education to 50% of the curriculums for a license type. And that it was also mentioned that the burden to make sure that the technology needed to participate in a virtual education class was also put on the school. The school needs to make sure the students have everything necessary to participate if they're going to offer a virtual class. I made those 2 revisions, although they are general, to the proposed rules that I have edited. But where we really left off in the crux of the conversation in our last meeting was zoning in within the umbrella of distance virtual education of asynchronous versus synchronous. And just as a reminder, I know you guys are so tired of hearing me explain this, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Synchronous distance virtual education is Zoom, Skype. Essentially, a teacher is live, present, participating in a virtual conversation, virtual instruction, real time with their students. Asynchronous virtual distance education is essentially, there are several different ways to give it. A learning module where you answer questions, A, B, C, or D after a question prompt. A recorded video. It essentially is defined as instruction without a live participating instructor. So it could be recorded, could be online exercises, online programs, assessments like that. Where we left off our conversation was Ms. Russell, Chairwoman Russell, brought up the Nevada report that essentially kind of served as an insurance examination of the cosmetology industry and looked at total services rendered of a specific service type, such as dyeing hair, nails, XYZ, looked at total incidents reported, and then basically gave a risk assessment to a specific service, basically in the risk that it offered to the public. We sent that information out. We left our conversation with the board was going to evaluate any materials that you so choose, including that Nevada report, and essentially come up with a list of services or areas of the curriculum that you all felt were too important to the health and safety of the public to allow them to be taught asynchronous virtual. So essentially you all were to come up with a list of areas that we are going to say, hey, you know what? These are too important. We believe due to, customer health, safety, hygiene, whatever it may be, to be taught without a live teacher present, either in person or virtually. So that's where we left things. So at that point in time, I'm just going to kind of open it up to you. I've reviewed all of the materials, but you all are the captain of this ship. So I need some direction on areas that you all believe that we want to exclude from virtual education as a whole, or specifically asynchronous virtual education. And then we can, schedule that rulemaking hearing in the future and get these rules grinded out. But essentially where we're going to look for areas that we believe justified being excluded from, asynchronous or virtual education as a whole. So I'll stop rambling, open up the floor to you all and answer any questions you have, take notes, get everything set in motion, whatever you want me to do.
Amy Tanksley, just for clarification, when you say 50% of license type, I want to be very clear. Essentially, that means half of the hours that anyone is receiving in their program could be virtual. When it comes to the apprentice program, how are those hours being split, knowing that half of them are being spent in a salon?
So this was Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. So this was part of our conversation last time with the virtual education piece, with limiting virtual education or distance learning education. I use those terms synonymously. Essentially, it means you're using technology to teach because you're not physically present in the same area. We limited that to 50% of the overarching curriculum. And the basis of that was we already have the apprenticeship rules in place that make this distinction of 50% practical hours and then 50% instructional hours. Even though those terms are not defined already by our statute or rules, it has set up a dynamic where you receive 50% of your total hours learning about the trade, and then you spend 50% of your hours applying the trade in a shop. So we currently have our rules set for schools based off of that apprenticeship dynamic, although not all schools do apprenticeship, and we're trying to figure out where to draw the line. In the apprenticeship aspect, theoretically, with this conversation is ongoing, but with the way things are currently, a school could submit an application to the board for approval and for an apprenticeship program and essentially state, hey, 50% of my overarching curriculum for my students, the theory portion, can be taught distance education virtually because that's the trend that the board is going in. So that would include everything that the school is responsible for, and then send them out the door to get the practical hours from the supervising licensed professional. So within that, the apprenticeship aspect, to answer your question specifically, in an apprenticeship program, the way that we are heading, every bit of instructional hours could be delivered virtually, and then they would just be sent to the shop.
Amy Tanksley, to clarify that, with 100%, well, those 750 hours, the theory hours, can they currently be offered 100% virtually?
Yes, but with the licensed Tennessee instructor synchronously teaching the course.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So we're here to decide today. I think your mic's on. Is it on? Okay. Whether part of those hours can be taught asynchronous. Correct.
Yes, you're correct. But more specifically, we've been having this general discussion about virtual versus non-virtual, and then zooming in to the virtual aspect, synchronous, live, asynchronous, non-live. It is all in your spectrum. I'm not limiting the board's decisions today. I'm just stating that based off of our last conversation where we're picking up, is the board wanted to look at specific areas to exclude from the asynchronous or virtual. You're not limited to either or. It was just, hey, let us look through these practice areas and figure out what poses a danger, and then we can rein those areas back in and make sure they're not being taught in a fashion, whether that's virtual of any kind or asynchronously in a way that the board would not appreciate or doesn't feel like it serves the public's interest.
Okay. So our recommendations were the ones that thought should not be excluded from teaching asynchronous. And so have you already drawn up some of those?
Well, no, it was the board was going to today give me that list. Yes, yes, yes.
And Roxanne, if I can add, several of you emailed with ideas. And so Joe looked them over to have an idea of it. But, and he's right, this is something that you all as a board need to decide and guide him how to write those up. So that's a very good question. Thank you.
Tamika Turner, for clarity, because I've been mulling over this since our last meeting. So for natural hair, 50% theory, 50% in the salon after passing the exam. So are we discussing now that we can get a percentage of the theory to be done asynchronously? Or are you saying that we have to leave it as the full 50% of the theory would be able to be done asynchronously, or just a percentage?
So Joe Wharton, counsel for the board. So what the board voted on last time was not limiting it to theory. It was just simply stated because, and it's confusing, I understand. Our apprenticeship rules draw a distinction between practical and theory. Nowhere in our statute and nowhere else in the rules is it defined, hey, these subject areas are defined as theory areas. These areas are defined as practical areas. The apprenticeship rules made this distinction to allow people, the line had to be drawn somewhere to where people could get enough instruction to go out and gain experience from public services. And they drew that distinction based off of the word theory and the word practical, although not defined. Since that dynamic is already in existence, we've discussed as a board, how do we approach this virtual education piece, which is different than apprenticeship, but we already have like this 50-50 dynamic set up. The other states that we looked at, Alabama and Texas, they did not jump, those states decided not to jump into specific areas. They just said, hey, barbering and cosmetology students in our states can obtain 50% of their education by virtual learning services. Alabama was a little more specific and they defined theory. And then they said, hey, you can only obtain your theory hours virtually. Okay. We haven't defined anything under theory. We just have a total curriculum of hours that you have to obtain. The board said at our last meeting, we're going to look at the total curriculum, not like a theory portion. We're looking at the total curriculum, and based off of the dynamic with apprenticeship, roughly 50% of each one of our curriculums should be theory, right? Because of the way we've set up apprenticeship. And that we should try to grasp those areas in virtual education. But what you're saying is theory hours. We haven't defined theory hours, if that makes sense what I'm telling you. We've just said 50% of the total curriculum for each separate license at this time.
Amy Tanksley, question, Alabama and Texas, 50% virtual learning. Do they currently define synchronous versus asynchronous?
They use those same terms that I brought up to the board. It's the NACCAS, NACAS, and essentially NACAS set up that distance education policy, and we presented those, and they defined those terms, and both of those states pretty much just use those terms. Alabama specifically incorporated the NACAS glossary of terms into their rules, so they didn't even like copy and paste and use the same definitions. They'll just cite you to NACAS. And that's how they use those definitions. And I included those definitions in the rules we presented last time, and that's how we define synchronous and asynchronous. And I can read those real quick if you want me to. But
I don't think I need you to read them. This is Amy again. They did not specify within the 50% what could be synchronous and what could be asynchronous. They don't get narrower than that.
I want to make sure I'm not misstating, because essentially Texas and Alabama both said 50. Now, one of them, and I believe it's Alabama, defines theory and says, hey, you can use the theory 50% of our curriculum includes these bullets, and that would be in virtual. Texas essentially just says you can get 50% of your total hours that you need virtual, and you're capped there. You can't get any more credit for virtual, synchronous or asynchronous, and both states allow synchronous or asynchronous education. Neither one of them disallow asynchronous and only allow synchronous.
Thank you. This is Amy. I just have a general comment. I think my biggest concern with applying more narrow definitions beyond 50% virtual is how on earth are we going to monitor what is and isn't happening? I think that's next to impossible. And so I would worry that if we further defined it or presented percentages of what could be synchronous or asynchronous, there is no way that we would know what's going on.
Becky Russell. In the proposal that I sent in, because we had agreed to 50% could be distance education or virtual education at the last meeting, then I wanted to address the synchronous versus asynchronous. I would like to see that no more than 10% of the education be taught in an asynchronous fashion. beyond that, viewing the Nevada report, it states in there the services that are licensed under our profession, and then it breaks down the percentage of steps in which there is an infection risk, a safety risk, or a product reaction risk. In every single one of these, one of the major things is safety and disinfection is listed in all of those services. So within the 10%, I would like to exclude the physical and chemical hours, so that the only thing that could be taught asynchronously would be in the general hours. And from the general hours, I would like to exclude disinfection. I'm not sure exactly how it's worded in our curriculum, but the sanitation, disinfection, safety portion, I'd like to exclude that from general. So anything within the general hours that's not safety or sanitation related can be taught as up to 10%. So in the virtual options, a school might have 50% taught either synchronously, or they could have up to 50% virtually, with no more than 10% of that being asynchronous.
Like what the director just said, I agree with that. I like that those asynchronous hours are not coming from physical or chemical. I like that it's coming from the general sector of, and I agree with the 10%, up to 10% of the asynchronous education being taught.
Tamika Turner. And that was my recommendation as well, just the 10%. And I know that we can't, we don't know what people are doing or what schools are doing. We're just hoping that they have integrity with everything that we put in place. But just the 10% for the asynchronous, you know, to have it in place, I think, yes, I feel the same way. But my question is to that, again, in the smaller programs, like the natural hair program, the aesthetics and the nails, would this apply as well to our theory portion, that 50-50?
It would have to apply to Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. It would have to apply to the theory portion, because even in the apprenticeship dynamic, they are not present virtually or physically present with the school when they're gaining practical hours. They would have already had to have taken the theory exam. So then, yes, we would be talking about the theory portion of their hours, because they've already examined out. There would be no point for them getting book instruction after.
Okay. So for clarity with that, 10% of the 300 hours would be able, well, I'm sorry, for natural hair, I'm gonna use that one. So it's 150 hours with the school, so only 10% of that can be done asynchronously.
What's the total number of hours for that license? I'm sorry.
It's 300.
300.
Mhm.
So essentially if I understand the chair correctly, she is saying in that specific instance, with 300 total hours needed for licensure, the asynchronous element would be limited to 30 hours, because that is 10% of the total hours needed for the curriculum.
Okay.
And if you were to offer 30 hours asynchronously, what could not be discussed in those hours or taught would be anything outside of general hours, the general topics included in the general portion of the curriculum, and would also have to exclude anything dealing with sanitation or safety.
Okay. And my final question, with them being taking the 10% off the total number and they're in the, I understand that for the traditional, but for apprenticeship, they're not with us. So are we taking numbers off the back end of that, like that 150 hours? Will they still have to do 150 hours in the salon? Or would that 150 hours come off of what we have in theory? That's just, just so that I can make sure I'm clear.
Joe Warden, legal counsel for the board. It's a fantastic question. I don't believe that we've delineated the difference in that. Based off of my notes and looking at like the strict words that I have written down from our previous conversations, virtual distance education has been limited to 50% of the total curriculum. The school has the decision what to put in there. Now, what the school is limited on is within the virtual education umbrella. If they so choose to do asynchronous, we have eliminated things that they can talk about there. What you're saying is, hey, if 300-hour program, 150 hours are going to be with a professional, only 150 in me, are we reducing the 10% to be 10% of the theory hours? I do not believe we've made that rule so far together. We've just said virtual education is 50% of the total. We're focused on the total hours, not the instruction portion, which you've brought up. I think I'm understanding what you're saying, right?
Becky Russell, when thinking about these rules, one of the reasons that I propose that 50% could be done synchronously is specifically due to the apprenticeship programs. And I believe that some of our apprenticeship programs are already being taught the theory portion, or the portion that they have to pass first. They are already teaching that in a synchronous manner. So to prevent them from being penalized by our new rules, or having to change what they're doing, then that's why I proposed 50% synchronous. Regardless of apprenticeship or traditional type programs, my proposal would say it's 50% of the hours would be completed in a virtual method. So the 300 hours, 150% of those could be completed virtually, regardless of if they are in a traditional program or in an apprenticeship. So 150 hours virtually, and then if they were in an apprenticeship, 150 hours at a salon, or if they are not in an apprenticeship, just a traditional program, the remainder of the 150 hours would be completed at the school.
So where would that, again, like, would those hours be taken from the school or from are we just not there yet? That's what I'm trying to understand. So will they only do 120 hours with me? Since, it synchronously?
Becky Russell, they're not being taken from anywhere. So it would be 150 hours in a virtual manner. If that school chose to, they could do up to 30% of that asynchronously and 120 hours synchronously. So the hours are not being removed in any way. It's 150 hours in the virtual education. And then within that 150 hours, the school could teach as much as 10% in an asynchronous fashion.
Joe Warden, legal counsel for the board. In furtherance to try to answer your question, Ms. Turner, in the apprenticeship element, the 30 hours that could be offered without live instruction asynchronously would all come from the theory portion. It wouldn't be split half and half, with them also having to do 15 less hours with the supervising professional. This would all be classroom hours done asynchronously.
Amy Tanksley, what is the board's recommendation on how we're going to police all of this?
Roxanna Gamusia, with all due respect, you are the board. You will be telling us how we police this. Because as you know, we have complaints from students, like we should. They are who we protect. We have schools that close, sometimes with no warning whatsoever. They'll still be providing the exact same statute requirement to us, which is the monthly hours report. Nothing like that's going to change. When we inspect, if there's no one in the building, we assume that they're learning through Zoom, Google, whatever methodology, and we should be able to see them in a classroom. It could be that that won't exist on that particular day we inspect because the school will tell us, oh, today, this is part of their 10% to teach online. I don't know. You as board members get to tell us, how else do we inspect? And you sort of made that point before. It isn't easy to track what exactly is happening. The complaints help us track, and this profession is not alone. That's how we know something's wrong. Unfortunately, sometimes is through the complaint process.
Becky Russell, I would suggest that this be part of the student record. So when files are inspected, then a student's record should show within their file that 100 hours have been completed in person, 100 hours synchronous, and 10 hours asynchronous. So it would become part of the student file. As far as I understand that this is hard to police, it's hard to enforce because we're not there, but quite frankly, we're not there every single day in person. So we don't know for certain that every school is doing what they're supposed to anyway. It's going to have to be a delicate record-keeping system for them and something for our inspectors to view. We're going to have to hope that our schools will operate with integrity and as we do now. This is the only way that I can think about it going forward. I think that it is important that we know that classes are being taught synchronously or asynchronously or virtually at all. I think it's just going to be a record-keeping system on the school's behalf.
Lane Petty, my question is, at what point is a school not going to be needed at all? Because if everything's done online, you're going to delete needing teachers because it's all on the computer.
Becky Russell, I ask myself this question due to AI all of the time. At what point? The question is not when will we not be needed as instructors. Education will always be needed. We will have to question at what limit are we putting or giving guidelines. And I think that that's what we need to think about this as. These are the guidelines that we expect that a school would follow. Synchronous or asynchronous, synchronous education was difficult for me in 2020 due to the close downs. We didn't have an option. So we went to synchronous education. My students struggled. The managers that hired them came back and told us that there was a deficit in their learning after the fact, even though we did as much as we could. And I was giving hours only if I could see the whites of their eyeballs. So they had to be visually on the screen. And I was looking at them, interacting with them, asking them questions to which they had to turn their mics on and answer. And it was still very difficult for the majority of learners. Synchronous or virtual education is going to be one of those things that even if a school offers it, the student is going to be in control of if that's the way that they will receive their education. I don't think that traditional schools will go away, and I don't think that virtual will ever be all there is out there to be offered. Students are going to have to decide if that's the way that they can learn and are willing to learn. The asynchronous hours, while I am not a fan of asynchronous hours, because I worry about students clocking in for one another, completing other people's work, I do also see a need for asynchronous education in some cases. And this might be if a synchronous class is scheduled and for whatever reason Zoom is not working today, then a student is going to lose that 6 or 8 hours based on just a specific technology difficulty at that point in time. I also think that asynchronous education may be a good answer for weather-related closures, water main breaks, things like that. I think by limiting it to no more than 10% of the overall, it gives us enough for that emergency case. And if a school should choose to teach their asynchronous hours in a specific topic at a specific time, then so be it. But we do have to make some kind of outline that we expect schools would follow.
Tamika Turner, thank you so much. That was amazing. I really appreciate you breaking it down to us. My last question is, will we be able to add the asynchronous on the record keeping, not the record, but our monthly hour report? Like, could we report it so that we have a trail? Whereas we report our hours, monthly for the students, could we report what is done synchronously and what is done asynchronously?
Roxana Gamusio. So the monthly hours Excel report was originally approved by the board. It used to be a 3 or 4 page copy document, that you turned around and it was like a ditto sheet. So you all have absolutely that option to have the Excel spreadsheet come back to you. I just want to caution, we struggle getting the reports as it is on time. I don't know, and we can try. I don't know if the schools will really break it down the way we'd like, but we can definitely try. We can add a column that says, are these synchronous hours or asynchronous? And at least we have a guidance and just redo that report. That is something that you all have approved and would again if we made a change. Thank you.
Becky Russell, while if that's what the board would like and to see it monthly, that works for me. But for me, specifically where I would like to see it broken down is in the transfer withdrawal form. Just because that student can only do, if we approve it this way, they would only be allowed to do asynchronous as 10%. The school that would be accepting transfer hours would need to know how much of their education was synchronous, asynchronous, virtual versus in person. So I don't know that I necessarily need to see it monthly, or that I feel like the board's office would need to see it monthly, but they would need to see it on that transfer withdrawal form.
Lori Turner, so I have a question. Right now, we have schools that are doing synchronous learning, but we're really not tracking. We really have no way of knowing if they're really synchronous. Is that what I'm hearing? That we're not really monitoring that. So they could technically be doing asynchronous right now and we not know that. Is that accurate?
Roxana Gamusio. So the reality is, if they've applied with us since 2020, if they have complaints from students, if they've had any change, they have documents that tell us whether they're doing synchronous or not. It comes up. If it is an older, more traditional school that hasn't had any changes, we've not had them come before the board, they might be doing synchronous education. We wouldn't necessarily know. They would not, at least based on them watching our meetings, hearing, seeing the way the information went out in 2020. The guidance has never been that they can teach without an instructor.
Lori Turner, that's what I'm asking. If we, like, let's say a school has been approved or grandfathered in, whatever, for synchronous, we really don't know for sure that they're not doing it asynchronously because we don't monitor that, correct?
Correct, Roxana Gamusio, unless there's a complaint from a student.
Okay. So
We do not.
I think I am concerned about whatever that the guidelines end up being. I know that we hope that there's integrity, but I think also if we don't know for sure they're not already doing it, how are we going to monitor that they're not doing more than 10% of it that way? And we're just not. And it doesn't seem like there's ever any consequence for not reporting hours at the right time, because we get students all the time who say my hours weren't turned in, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I think my concern is that it's going to also open up a whole much bigger amount of complaints at some point in time if we don't have some way to monitor that. Does that make sense?
Amy Tanksley, I guess I feel very strongly that I'm coming at this from a very different perspective, and that is I am excited to see more options for our students. I personally employ quite a few people who can't go to traditional programs, and having to be available from 8 to 5 for a traditional program or even a synchronous program is next to impossible for these students to join our industry. So I am excited that offering more virtual education and therefore asynchronous education opens up this industry to more people to join us and grow the industry. I think we are making a mistake by over mandating things that we can't monitor or control. Ultimately, everyone who becomes licensed has to take 2 tests. And that is the ultimate test of whether someone can be licensed in our industry. I'm also a big fan of making this easier for people to become licensed because of our ongoing problem with unlicensed activity. So I am in a huge support of offering virtual education. I am not in favor of offering virtual education with more stipulations that we'll never be able to monitor.
Lori Turner, I agree. That's kind of where I was trying to get to. I hold another license with the state of Tennessee as a nurse. And so therefore, our industry is one of the very last remaining industries that takes a written and a practical board. Nurses do not take a practical board. We take a written NCLEX. We are tested on all of our physical, clinical skills at our schools. So our industry is one of the very last ones that's still requiring a practical and a written test. Kids are going to cheat. Schools are going to do the things that they're going to do regardless of, and I think we can over micromanage some of this. And if we are still one of the last programs that are allowing or requiring a physical, hands-on practical test as well as a written test, then if those students cheat, that is on them. It will become evident when they take their testing. That's how I feel. I think that we are putting way too many stipulations. I think we're making it almost impossible for the student and for the schools to be able to offer virtual education. I think we're asking to jump through hoops. That's just my personal opinion.
Amy Tanksley, question. With this first draft, right, we have an opportunity to review and amend as needed going forward if we see problems or abuse in the system.
That is Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. That is correct. So essentially, I proposed the draft at our last meeting because this is a very large concept and it's hard to discuss without looking at something on paper together and having like a direction to move forward, which was the purpose of the draft I presented to you last time, and it worked great. We had a great conversation and we zoned into this 50% number. Now we just need to put in this last little bit, the rulemaking hearing. You'll get all the input. You'll get to review every single rule. That formal process has yet to be initiated or authorized by you all. You all will get that rulemaking hearing where you review all the rules. We can make any revisions. We take public comment. But this is such a big topic, and I didn't want to waste the board's time, the board's finances, and me spending hours on rules that you look at and like, whoa, you missed the ship, Joe, and this is 2 months of work. So I really wanted to zone in so that I had as accurate of a heading from you all. That way, in a couple of months, when we do have a rulemaking hearing, you go, this is 90% of this is 100% of what I wanted, Joe. You're the best attorney I've ever met in the world. Or more realistically, hey, this is like 80% of what we wanted. Let's recraft this extra 20% and we've got it, make those final rule revisions and put it in front of the legislature.
Yes, but and to clarify again, Amy, again, once we have this done and we're past the rulemaking, if we want to readdress those down the road, what is the process to do that?
Joe Warden, legal counsel for the board, a new rulemaking process. We can revise our rules. We put rules into place and we revise them all the time. So we could just revise the rules that we put in place if we, after, their implementation, we go, hey, this rule that we put in place for virtual education, it seems to be causing a hiccup for schools. We can amend and change that rule. We have full power over rules. We don't have power over the statutes. Our statute authorizes virtual education. So we're in our own realm here.
If I could add that, Roxana Gamusio, we've done something similar when it came to apprenticeship, right? When we wrote the rules for apprenticeship, we spent close to 2 years making sure that they made some sense and that the public, the students were protected. We've recently revised them to where a supervising professional can take up to 3 students and delineated how that would work. So we can always come back if we need to correct a rule. Hopefully we will agree he's the best attorney ever and it'll launch. But we will find out from students, from schools. And if we do, sort of to Lori and Amy's point, if we do overregulate it and the 10% makes it almost impossible, or the schools aren't following, we'll probably know soon enough as well. So that's the piece. We just need to figure out how to put it in writing so that when the school presents a new application, that application makes sense to you. And it looks like they're going to follow what the intent was.
This is Amy. What are you looking from us, for us?
Joe Warden, legal counsel for the board. So the first thing was this discussion and to build consensus on you all, as you guys are the decision makers. If you all feel like you've reached consensus on this topic, which I kind of feel that we have, at this point in time, what I would need is you all to give me the authorization to start the rulemaking process and authorization to schedule a rulemaking hearing in the future. That allows me to get the rulemaking hearing scheduled as quickly as possible without waiting for the next board meeting to get permission from you all, then to schedule it down the road. And I would craft the permission, if I could, to rules dealing with distance education. We have the Cosmetology Compact that's being worked on. Roxana has mentioned a fee that we need to add to our rules for the application of the multi-state license. I would also ask permission that you allow me to include that in the rulemaking as it's necessary. And then I think a strategy that I'm going to take moving forward is, as I review the rules as part of this project, if I were to stumble across a typo error or anything like that, not a concept, but a mistake in a rule, that I could bring that revision in front of you all just as bookkeeping policies and make sure that's straightened out.
Becky Russell, I think that maybe at this time, last time we voted to include 50% of the education to be asynchronous. Can we, at this time, discuss or maybe just call out if we are okay with leaving virtual as it is, just virtual, synchronous or asynchronous, or do we need to set a limit to asynchronous hours? I think that might help Joe moving forward if he needs to have a limit to asynchronous hours within the 50%, or if we're just open to a free-for-all 50%, however virtual they would like.
I understand, Tamika Turner. I understand the overregulating, but I also do well with guidelines. Like, this is just the guide. We have to have a guideline. We have to have something for schools to follow. And as a school owner, it's not that hard. The number one thing is to have integrity and want to do the right thing and protect the students and the industry. But, to me, we're lowering so many standards in the industry that it's almost next to impossible to provide great education because they know that they can go somewhere else, and the student themselves wanting to just jump over this part, like the educational piece, so that they can get to work. But as for me, the 10% and the 50%, but 10% asynchronous, I don't see that being a huge obstacle to overcome. So I don't know how we move forward from here, but I do, speaking from a school owner, it's a guideline to have in place. And like Ms. Roxana said, they show us the intention that they're going to follow this. And what comes behind that is if they're not following it and you have a student who needs more involvement from the teacher and they're not getting it, and then they involve us in it, and then we go from there. But it's just a guideline. So.
Joe Wharton, legal counsel for the board. My suggestion at this point in time would be that the board or a member of the board make a specific motion on these parameters, and then we put forward on a vote. And then based off of that vote, we can either close this and I'll move forward with the rulemaking, or we can keep discussing and zone in on exactly what we would want.
Yeah, and this is Amy. I want to be very clear. I mean, I will support you guys with the 10%. I very much will, right? I understand where your heart is coming from. I'm also remiss at just saying that I think we can come up with all the rules we want, and the reality that they be followed. Maybe at your school they are, and at your school they are, and I appreciate that, but that won't be the case throughout the state. I'm also asking that if I back your 10%, we get the chance to revisit this and discuss going forward. Because I do feel strongly that people who can't attend 9 to 5 should not be withheld from joining our field.
Monica Lemons, I'm going to make a proposal that we do the 10% as they discussed and put it to a vote.
Joe Wharton, counsel for the board. Just to summarize, Ms. Lemons, and make sure I've gotten it, is the proposal that you are moving forward with the motion in front of the board is that virtual education be limited to 50% of the total curriculum of a specific license, and that asynchronous education, which is virtual education without the presence of a live instructor, will be limited to 10% of the total curriculum.
Monica Lemons, yes, correct.
Jeffrey Moran, I second it.
Thank you, members. We have a properly motioned first and second. We have a properly motioned first and second. I will proceed with roll call vote in a minute. Joe reiterated the entire motion and his task at hand. He will also be reviewing as he writes this, anything else where this may clash, and the 10% as stated is not being limited. Is that correct? So we will proceed and then move forward with the rulemaking hearing.
Before we vote, this is 10% of the 50%, correct?
No, 10% of, correct.
That is the current motion.
Joe Wharton, counsel for the board. The last thing I want, and I don't want to belabor this point, but the last thing I want to point out to the board is previously we had exclusions articulated on the record to the 10%. The motion, as I understand it in front of the board right now, does not include the exclusions from the 10% asynchronous education and just limits asynchronous education to the 10% number of the total curriculum.
We have a motion on the table. We would need a second to proceed or the motion dies.
Lori Turner, second.
Oh, I apologize. We had a motion by Monica Lemons and a second by Jeffrey Moran. Thank you. I apologize. I was ready for roll call vote. We added to the clarity that the 10% is overall, not limiting and being defined. If Joe finds anything else clerical that needs to be added, it would be part of this. As I read your names, let me know if this motion is what you are agreeing with. If not, I need to know by hearing no, and we would proceed if the motion dies. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Terry Baldwin, Renetta Carlton,
Yes.
Monica Lemons,
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Lori Turner,
Yes.
and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Members, thank you. By roll call vote, the motion and seconded motion proceeds. Joe will start on this process at the next meeting. I don't know that we would have rulemaking hearing in enough time. I'll let you kind of guide us.
Joe Warren, counsel for the board. Just as an FYI, logistically, there's not going to be any way that I have all the approvals and drafted language by our next meeting. I would say realistically, we're probably looking at October, December for that rulemaking hearing, but I'll keep you guys updated. And obviously, this is a top priority for me. I just want to set realistic expectations based on the timeline.
Yeah, this is Amy Tanksley. I'm okay with that because the public needs to have ample opportunity to consider.
Thank you, Roxanne. And there's always timeline for each thing, so it isn't that it's fast, but we want it done right. Members, if there's anything else to discuss, I welcome that. If not, I will see if there's anyone participating here in person or online that has any questions about what we've addressed. Okay, seeing those questions. We have any questions? Need you to introduce yourself. That's the introduce yourself.
Marley Shaross. I had just a few questions just listening to your discussion with the asynchronous and the synchronous learning. I listened to your statement regarding nursing and how nursing just has that one test. And I agree that nursing has that, but they also go through a clinicals that's vital to their education, whether they pass or fail before they even are allowed to test. It's a little different when it comes to cosmetology because yes, they're in class and they're receiving hours for their practical, but it's not a pass or fail. As long as we've given them those hours, I mean, we pretty much have to send them to the board to test. So if they do well at testing just on a whim, then they pass and they get their license. Whereas clinicals for nursing is a little bit more structured, a little bit more strict. I'm a huge fan of in-person learning, whether it's online, virtual, where it's completely synchronous the entire time. As far as asynchronous, just because I deal with students from like dual enrollment, whether they're in high school, whether they're adults. I've had a student at the age of 59, and I feel as if they lose a little bit of what our industry creates as far as communication and community and being able to articulate, being able to ask questions when they're studying on their own. I feel as if they lose the ability to communicate with their classmates, which is what our industry is. It's relationship building. It's learning to market. It's learning to sell yourself because essentially we're in a sales industry. And if you're learning on your own as far as the history as a whole, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice because that is what our industry is built on. It's built on the relationships and being with people. I take that all the way to the suite, to having a suite. I'm against the suite. I hate the idea of having suites simply because you lose the relationship. So I feel as if when it comes to asynchronous learning, I just feel like it takes away from the student's ability to effectively retain, communicate, and build with their instructors, their classmates as a whole. I think that the apprenticeship model is a great model for students who are not able to commit to the full 8 to 5 traditional learning, but it allows them to still have that one-on-one interaction. It may take them a little longer with a part-time institution where they may be going to school in the evening, but they still are able to complete the program, enter into our industry, and I think that it should be limited to the apprenticeship model as far as asynchronous and reaching out to those students. But just a little listening to you guys, I love all the difference in opinions, just coming from an instructor perspective, a professional perspective as well. That's just something that I feel that our industry should probably cap on as far as our learning and distance learning asynchronous just definitely puts a damper. And as we said, we can't regulate whether they're doing it or not. But I feel like if we open the door and say that it's okay, then people take that. It's like you give them an inch, they take a mile. But if there's a regulation that says we don't have that, then we can be more strict with policies when it is violated.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Just one person.
Hello, I'm Michaela Kilberry, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Jaden Ruggiero. I know you guys have already gone over her case. Jaden has been working for me inside my salon as a salon coordinator and just recently as a shampoo tech. She did go to school, and there was, of course, life happened, children happened, grandma cancer happened. The school closed down. Didn't even tell the students. They just closed the doors and went bankrupt. From 2018, when I met her, I have been calling State Board constantly, not every month, but just periodically. I would call and ask, hey, look, there's got to be something that you guys can do. And the answer was always, no, we don't have any answers because the school was not accredited. And I know from me going to school and getting my instructor's hours, if it's not accredited, there's no way to find those hours. All of a sudden, about January of this year, they were able to find her hours. And I sent in the $25 to get her hours, and I received the paper from Miss Laura. And she was the only one that would really help me because, as I've said, from 2018 until present, we have called and I've been like, she's still paying for her school. There's got to be something that we can do. And finally, they gave us the hours, and 1,040 hours, 0.26. That's a lot of hours to just completely, totally lose. We have called. We could have gone back to school easily anytime in between 2018 and now. We could have gone back to school, but we couldn't find those hours, and she couldn't start all over again. She has 3 children. She has a mother that has seizures and everything else, and she has to also take care of her mother. So it'd be almost difficult for her to go back full time. And if she could just please go back and finish the 460 hours that she's owed, I'm pleading with you guys. She has worked with me. Part of her job is to keep up on state board regulations. She goes through and does sanitation and makes sure that we're doing the laws correctly. That's part of her job as her salon coordinator. So I would just appreciate if you guys would just give her a chance to finish up her 460 hours and continue. I know she can't do an apprenticeship. That's out of the question. But she can go to school and finish her rest of her hours and then just be licensed. And she has been taking the practice test too for state board and has aced every one of them. So she's very knowledgeable. And I'm just asking you guys to reconsider, please.
Members, if you have any questions regarding this, if not, we will continue to see if there's anyone online. No questions, no change to the motion. As the motion was defined, we will proceed. Since there was a motion and a roll call vote on the miscellaneous for this. Okay. I don't think there's any.
Hi, my name's Katerina Vidovich. I'm speaking on the behalf of half that side. We came from a school in Clarksville, Tennessee that was called Revive Beauty and Wellness Institute. I know you guys discussed your guys' legal cases, and I guess my question here is, we were in a situation where our school was suddenly shut down without any notice and went through lots of issues, and we all submitted long complaints with emails and evidence. And I guess my question that we are all here wondering is, due to the issue that we had, are we able to get the hours from that school?
So if I could add, complaints are not addressed during this because they're redacted. So the members don't know which complaints were about that school. It's important that it live out its process.
Mm-hmm.
And so you getting hours from that school, the board members can decide to approve the withdrawal. If you've not gotten it, that's not a problem, but the complaint needs to live out. It hasn't had a chance to do that. They were presented to the board today. So the board's made decisions not knowing what the school is, which is very important. The complaints will close, and if the students are not receiving the withdrawal documents, that is something I can help and present to the board to release.
So if I understand correctly, because we all submitted our withdrawal forms.
So let me stop you. You've submitted them to us?
I don't believe it was to you guys
Okay.
because we received them
From the school.
And we're not able to receive them back. Meaning our teacher blatantly just withholded everything from us. From my understanding was that was potentially going to be discussed today, or at least let us know where we're at, because a lot of us are waiting to know when we can graduate, know where we're at in school, know how much time we have left. Some people have situations with work, school, children. So I guess due to the fact that we all spent the time here today, just an update of some sort of where we're at.
And so hopefully no one told you to come to address the complaint because we don't. The complaints are addressed in a redacted fashion. They've made decisions. Legal counsel will prepare those and you'll get that information. If you don't have my phone number or the attorneys, I'm happy to make sure that you do. We can help you with the hours, but the complaints were just presented. So a decision was just made.
So due to the hours, do we have to contact you personally for that information to know if we
If they're
can?
not being released, I will look at those complaints and make sure that legal counsel takes all that into account.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will proceed, I think, with online to see if Dana has any questions, anything else that is relevant to the agenda. And I do want to remind, that's on me to not remind that the complaints are redacted, and so they're really not part of this. The attorney, Michael Underhill, will make sure complaints are resolved based on your decisions.
This is Amy. Can we just make a comment, though?
Sure.
To the students who are here that I've served on this board for over 10 years now. And I will tell you that this board and Roxanne and her office have done everything they possibly can to get students their hours in an incident like this where a school has closed. So you're in good hands. We care about you. We're glad you're here. We're sorry we can't give you exact information today. It sounds like it's working through the process to get you those hours. I also want to say on the record that as we are opening more schools, it is in the student's best interest to really investigate the school that you are applying to or sending your checks to. These schools are for-profit businesses, and they are a business, and we have no control over whether they are run well or not run well. And unfortunately, that impacts the students who are attending them, and oftentimes negatively.
Thank you, Ms. Tanksley. And to clarify, the board did not shut the school. The school abruptly closed, right? I just want to make sure.
Correct. And,
Yes.
and in the past, we've had
Yeah.
many instances of those, and it really leaves the students in limbo.
Agreed. Dana, I think you can hear me. Do you have anyone on the public that has a question or comment about the items presented on the agenda?
I do have a person that would like to make a comment.
If you will go ahead and unmute her, and of course, our comments are limited to 3 minutes, but I'll make sure that the board members are able to hear. And if we need to start by getting a name on the record, please.
Hello, for the record, my name is Hannah, and I'm coming to this meeting today to present that I have a letter of waivering for additional schooling hours coming from California to Tennessee. I did complete a program that was 600 hours. That's the state of California's requirement to graduate as a licensed esthetician. And here is 750. Back in February, I was communicating with you guys. I was misled with some information saying that I did not have to go back to school. I just had to pay the transfer fee and take my practical a week before I was supposed to move to Tennessee. I was told that I do have to go back to school and I have to find a school that will accept me, or I stay in California and I have my license for a year, and that would be in July. Well, unfortunately, I could not find a school, and this one school that was going to take me was only going to accept me on 375 hours, which means I'd have to make up another 375, and they wanted to charge me $10,000. I don't unfortunately have $10,000 to put down on school again. Um, so I'm just here to present that I have a waiver of additional hours.
Roxana Gamusio. So Hannah, could you give me your last name, please?
Hannah Kelly,
Kelly.
Kelly.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. So members, you don't have Ms. Kelly's documents to review in front of you. If we had them, they would be on your iPads. You would be reviewing a reciprocity applicant with a license from California with 600 hours, because that is their requirement. And as she stated, just the theory exam, but she's short the 150 hours and doesn't have the 1 year experience. What the members have given us guidance on is if they're coming from a state that is lower in hours or requirements, then we need at least 1 year experience, 1 out of the last 3 or 2 out of the last 5. That's our guidance. So I believe Ms. Hannah Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, is asking for a waiver. We don't need a waiver letter. We do need proof of experience. But it by the time she, I believe, completed the application, we were far from the year. So in July still is. If the board chooses to change this, this would be your time. But that's what you would be reviewing, is a reciprocal applicant. And Ms. Kelly, do you have a California license? You do, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it's simply missing the number of hours and the practical exam from the state.
This is Amy Tanksley. To confirm, this is a nail license or an aesthetics license?
Aesthetics.
This is an aesthetics license that is issued by the state of California at 600 hours because that is their requirement, and ours is 750.
And no practical. California has done away.
And no
with it.
practical. So can we approve her to, if I make a motion, can we make a motion to approve her to take both of the exams?
You can, and we will change our parameter. I would just need to know then, are we not looking for the full year? Because right now, we are looking at that full year of experience, which she's short. That's the only reason that she would have been presented. And you don't have the records because we didn't have them before the meeting.
Right, and that is anything inside the norm, your office approves, no problem.
And your
right?
norm has been the guidance part, Roxana Gamuzu. The decision, it's not a norm. The decision by the board was 1 year minimum to waive the requirements. She would have still needed the practical exam because that's gone away in California. That was your guidance. So if we change the guidance, that is great. We just need to know moving forward. And so.
No, this is Amy Tanksley. I'm not advocating that we change the guidance. I think my concern is I have yet to be at many schools who will accept any of these students for such minimal hours, and it really puts the applicant in a pickle. I don't know of any schools that will accept you for 150 hours. So I hear what you're saying. So at this point, I would like to make a motion that we approve this applicant to take both the practical and the theory to be licensed as an esthetician in the state of Tennessee.
Lori Turner, second.
Thank you, members. We have a properly motioned and seconded motion for Ms. Hannah Kelly. This is a reciprocity application with 600 hours out of the state of California, only the theory exam. The board has voted to accept her active license, so she doesn't have to go back to school, but she will be taking both the theory and practical exams, correct? Ms. Tankley, thank you.
Yes.
Let me do roll call vote. If you are in agreement, let me know. If not, we can proceed. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Terry Baldwin, Bernetta Carlton, Monica Lemon.
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Lori Turner,
Yes.
and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. Hannah, give us a while since I didn't have you before them. I'll have to make sure we have all the records, but as soon as we do, you will get confirmation that you'll need to take both exams and we need the application to test from you. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Hannah Kelly. So with the approval, I do have a lot of experience working wise in the beauty industry and working at work, clocked in hours at work. Is that something that I would have to send over to you guys through via email?
No, at this point, the motion has been made for you to take both exams as long as you have completed the application. We have your California license. You've paid the reciprocity fee of $100. We should be able to proceed because the board has already made a decision. You will need both of those exams.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Dana, do we have anyone else that has a question or needed clarification?
No.
Ms. Russell and members, I'll turn it over to you. If there is nothing else, I'll be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Dave McAreef.
Do we have a second?
Second. Lane Betty.
Thank you, Ms. Petty. This is Roxana Gamucio. We have a motion at 11:50 a.m. to adjourn and a second by roll call vote to make sure that everyone's in agreement and we've not left anything pending. Susan Arnold,
Yes.
Perry Baldwin, Brunetta Carlton, Monica Lemons,
Yes.
David McElreath,
Yes.
Jeffrey Moran,
Yes.
Lane Petty,
Yes.
Becky Russell,
Yes.
Amy Tanksley,
Yes.
Lori Turner, and Tamika Turner.
Yes.
Thank you, members. Safe travels home. Anna Gamucio, thank you. We are adjourned.